Welcome to a discussion. We should catch up more often, get together more often, and catch up more often. You know. And everybody's coming to the club, and this is great. It's great to see this. It's great to see everybody, and welcome to a discussion about locking through Old Hickory Dam and anchoring, two very important skills that need to be learned. It's going to be low tech. I've got some diagrams. I've got a couple of props that we might take a look at, and it's evidently being recorded. So how many people in here have locked through before? How many people in here have locked through in their boat? Good, good. So we've got a good body of experience. Good body of experience here. What I'm about to discuss can be very personal. Everybody has their own systems. Everybody has their own challenges. Everybody has their own way of doing things. So don't feel like that what I'm about to talk about is the only way you can do it. There's lots of ways that you can do both of these things, but there's some considerations that you probably need to take into account. Right off the bat, weather and river conditions are two important issues. You can go on to NOAA's website and they will have river levels, and that is an indication as to what's going on. And they will describe that in elevation. They will describe that in elevation. You do not want to be going through a lock or coming back from a lock in the conditions that we had the other day. I think some of y'all have seen what Old Hickory Lock and Dam looks like right now. You would not want to be traveling against that current, and you would not want to be coming out of that lock into that current because once the boat's speed, hull speed is exceeded, you lose steerage. And that current can be pretty swift down through there. So just look at your route. Another aspect is that you all have masts, and those stick up fairly high, some higher than others. Most bridges are at 52 feet, that's low steel elevation, above normal pool, okay? So be sure that you understand that normal pool is at this elevation. If you look at your chart book, it'll have low steel elevation. The two will give you how much room you've got in between there. Most bridges, it's not a problem. There's one in downtown Nashville that's a railroad bridge that can be 47 feet at normal pool. I think it's mostly open now, but it's one that will run up on you quickly. That's not the time to calculate how tall your mast is or what the normal pool or low steel is, because the current is pushing you into the bridge. And they will not open the bridge if a train's coming. They just won't do it. So another bridge on the route out of Nashville, for example, would be the Clarksville Bridge. I think it's like 49 feet above normal pool, so make sure that as you look down the route that your mast is clearing it and your weather conditions are such that you're not going to find yourself anchored off the side of the river somewhere for 4 days waiting for current and debris to come down. Sure, go ahead.
So on this NOAA site, it tells us the elevation, or is it in reference to normal pool?
No, it tells you the elevation.
Okay.
Right.
So we have to look at the chart to see what normal pool is. Right.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
EPA has an app you can download that has all the pools.
Yeah, there's information that's available. My biggest point is don't wait until you need it to figure that information out.
But none of those tell you what the strength of the current is at that time, right?
No, I think it will give you like cubic feet per second that's coming out, the flow. It'll give you the flow, but unless you have a reference point, that may not mean a whole lot. I mean, you know the water's firing out of there. Don't go right now. Pick a good. Yeah, the best time. And it really, I mean, depending on your boat, it can really slow you down. They're generating electricity, and they're also letting water loose right now. So, I mean, those buoys, if you've not seen them before, are just like leaning over and dancing around, and you've told the lock master you'll be there in an hour, and it takes 3 hours.
So would a good reference be the dam flow rate?
I mean, certainly, again, if you have a reference, if you looked at it before and you said, okay, well, today was a calm day, this was with a flow rate, and then, but again, you have to keep in mind that this is a hydroelectric dam, and so they generate electricity, which they cannot save. So at night, when everybody's asleep, they shut a bunch of generators down, and the current's not so bad. In the middle of the day, if it's hot or cold, it's cranking. I mean, they're putting water out of there. So, one of the points might be is moving your boat. If you're coming upstream back into the dam, is to leave early in the morning from downtown Nashville. Early in the morning from downtown Nashville, because it's going to take you a long time to get back. Yeah.
So head down later in the day, up early.
Oh, and really the best time to go is in the autumn. I mean, springtime. This time of year, you can move, but you may also get stuck. And so, and when I say being stuck, I'm talking about anchored in a cove that the water's rising and the breeze flowing around you, and you're just having to wait for days for those two things to go away.
We have a member right now.
That's stuck. Yeah.
McDonald's stuck waiting because of the river conditions.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, and the best thing to do is to relax. Either do some work on your boat, read a book, do what you got to do to pass the time. But don't try to fight it. You will not win. Okay, so.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we know what the maximum current usually is?
I mean, I guess that probably varies, again, whether it's early in the morning or late in the afternoon, if it's really hot or really cold. I'd say that has a lot to do with the current, and if they're trying to release or hold water here at Old Hickory Lake. Yes, I'm sorry.
Is there a website or an app to see what the current is, or you were talking about looking at the buoy? Is that the only way you know it?
Yeah, was it TVA?
TVA.
It has cameras on the down, yeah, and you can see and if it's rolling and boiling, you just don't want to get into that, yeah.
I see it via a picture or video,
Sure,
but there's no numerical
absolutely there is numerical information.
that gives you the current.
Well, not the current, no. It only gives you, what's it, cubic feet per second or something, some flow rate. It gives you flow rate. And again, you have to have a reference. You have to know that the flow rate is on this day when the river's nice and the flow rate when it's not nice. Yeah.
6 knots if you're freely pouring the cold to it, and if you're losing 3 knots, that means you're making 3 knots.
All right. And yeah, the worst case scenario is that you would be trying to make your way upriver against that current, the doors of the lock open, and some barge is coming downstream at you at incredibly fast speed,
It also multiplies the closer you get to the dam. So
It does.
in Nashville or Rock
Right.
where they're starting from, they'll do fine till they get to Nashville, and then narrow down to there.
Then when you pull into that lock wall, it goes, nah. The current stops.
Dave
Yeah.
also gets on, and there's dams, they'll have generation schedules.
Yes,
So you know when they're gonna generate.
Yes.
And when they're not.
yes.
And so that's a good indicator too.
Right.
That the current will be.
It's pretty-
Stronger approaching the dam if they're generating.
They can look at the temperature and they can tell what the flow rate's going to be and that sort of stuff. Okay.
Use that for fishing, because I'll tell you what, if any of you ever fished, I fished a lot in Canyon Fork, and water that deep, when they're not generating, it's fine. Water that deep when they're generating has knocked me down and I've lost a year.
But what app are we going
And it's an Army Corps app, and it tells you all the dams that are in the middle Tennessee area, and when they're discharging, how many generators are running, all that. I always use that for safety,
Yeah,
for fishing, because
yeah.
I don't want to get swept down the river.
It's part of preparation. Yeah, it's part of preparation and do your homework ahead of time.
And the pictures and info is always current.
Yes, yes, yes. In fact, as you travel down the rivers a little more, you'll run into predictions of river levels. On the Tom Bigby, for example, if you're on the Tom Bigby, you can see graphically what they forecast, and they're pretty good at it, what the flood conditions will be. So you can make your calculations, again, because you know low steel, whether you can move or not, or whether you're going to trap between two bridges. But let's go on to locking through. So you're going to leave Harbor Island Yacht Club, and I think it's, what, 6 miles down to the lock or something like that. And your boat is ready to go. You know you have a reliable engine, your navigation lights are good, have a fire extinguisher, you have all the stuff that you need to have a safe trip. And as you approach the lock, you need to call the harbor master. These guys do this all day long, and they're very helpful. Lockmaster, I'm sorry, harbor master. They do this all day long. Well, I will say, as most know that have done this before, these lockmasters, operators, have personalities. They have their little quirks and things they do, and the best thing you can do is just follow along and you know, do what they request, whatever you think of it. So, so you've got a good boat, you're heading down toward the lock, you're going to lock through. And so you call ahead of time on channel 16 and you just say your vessel's name to the Old Hickory Lock and Dam. You can also make a phone call. So don't, and they're very used to picking up the phone and talking to you. They will tell you to go to a working channel. It can be 12, 10, 11, 14, most of them are kind of in that range. Turn your radio to that working channel and acknowledge that y'all are both on that working channel. And it's usually good to say, hey, we're, downriver, upriver, because they don't know where you're at. They can't see you. They just know they've got a radio call. Tell them where you're going, downriver, and that you'd like to lock through in about whatever time you estimate that you should arrive at the lock. They may say, take your time. There's a tow in the lock right now. I've got to bring it take them down, let them out, fill that back up, and then open for you. So that's okay. Just slow down, take your time, have lunch, drop an anchor if you think it's going to be a while. It can be, it varies, but it can be an hour or more to lock. It can be longer than that. It can be actually 3 hours if they're bringing it through in sections. And yeah, so just be patient. Don't hesitate to touch base with the lockmaster, but don't bug them. They'll get to you when they can get to you.
Well, they'll know you're there then, right?
They'll know you're there, and they know that you're, and they're good at what they do.
They tell you they're gonna have to, there's one having to drop them off, and they're gonna go back.
Right.
They're gonna bring them through in sections, and they gotta make multiple trips back and forth, and you're sitting there. So if you don't see them tie up and take off, you don't have the green lights, so call them and bug them, just wait.
You are the lowest.
Sometimes a good towboat guy will say, why don't you let them through?
Right.
Don't count.
And the good
Because they're
lock
listening.
operator- And the good lock operator.
Right.
Not getting denied by a lock operator in that deal, he just said, no, I'm not letting anybody go through with anybody.
Yeah.
Period.
You will be the lowest priority of the lock. Military, commercial, and then recreational. Yeah, Paul.
So what is the proper way to ID your boat if it's a generic boat, it's a motorboat, it's 20 feet long, or a sailboat with no name on it?
You can say motorboat. You can say 20-foot motorboat. Yeah, it's no problem. They just need to know that you're what you are. And
Wave a flag before you get there and say, hey, this is me, I just talked to you.
no. Huh? Yeah. This is sailboats. But yeah, even a canoe. You can take a kayak through the lock. Seriously, you can. People do it. Yeah.
You don't even have to have a radio or a phone, you can actually pull up to the wall and pull the chain.
And Joe's right. You can actually pull a chain, and that will let them know. That's right. That's right. All right.
What's a chain do?
It notices. Right. They have cameras. Right.
Is it right at the entrance?
They have cameras on the lock around the area. They see everything that's going on. They'll see your mistakes. They'll see you not miss the bollard and circle around, you know. They'll see you.
So is that where that yanking their chain came from?
Could be. Okay, so you're approaching the lock. The lockmaster has said, hey, you know, you're in luck today. The doors, we're up. The doors are open. Come on in. You have a green light, and there will be a green light. Now, sometimes you have to look for them because they're not always in the same place. So it doesn't hurt to get your binoculars out ahead of time and kind of find where that light is so you can see it. Yeah.
Should we also mention that if you're waiting, make sure you keep that area clear?
Yeah. Somebody, because as soon as those doors open and there's people that have locked up, a bunch of power boats, a bunch of fishermen, they're just going to be like, you know. So do keep that area clear. They have it defined. So have your life jacket on. They will probably tell you to put your life jacket on, but have your life jacket on. I would suggest you have it on and secured. Some people just have it on. The lockmasters are different about the way they approach that, but they may ask you to secure it. But the thing that you're guarding against is falling in the water, and that's a distinct possibility. You're moving around the edge, you're pushing away, you're putting up fenders and lines, you know, this wall's moving up, the boat's moving up and down this wall. So, you know, things can happen, so I'm just saying that, you know, secure that. You need 4 sizable fenders. Sizable fenders. Don't expect a 6-inch fender will protect your boat, your 18,000-pound boat, from that wall. It is a nasty, ugly wall. It's concrete. Nasty. It's got moss on it and rust, and it's been fragments of concrete chipped off from the last barge that came through there. You may be able to see that this one has been through several, and there's gouges and scratches in it from where it kind of gets stuck on the wall. So you want to make sure you got some fenders, and sizable ones, and at least 4 and 6 are not bad. You want to place them, sort of getting ahead a little bit. You're going to be pulling along this concrete wall, and you are going to, in essence, hook a line over a bollard, which is this floating thing that goes up and down the wall, and secure it, and then let the lockmaster know that you're secure, and they will start the actions. So that's kind of the basics of the. I lost my point. But anyhow, so in addition to 4, I know what it was. Yeah, the distances. Yeah. So the bollard is right here. It's in this slot that's moving up and down. There's these 2 metal kind of skid plates, I guess, that are around the edges, and they're about this far apart. You want a fender here. You want a fender here on your boat. Okay. Those are the most important. You want another fender halfway between that and the bow, and halfway between that and the stern. Speaking of sterns, if you've got stuff hanging off your boat, it's on that side. That is problematic. A grill, for example. It'll just rip it off. So make sure that you don't have stuff hanging out on the sidewall. So you space your those 4 fenders out. If you have more, then put a little more in the front, a little more in the back. Sometimes wind can really play havoc with your boat as you're trying, so the bow kind of wants to come around. You need 2 strong boat hooks. I know a lot of people have sliding boat hooks. They can work. If you've ever had it fail on you, throw it away. Don't use it. Because you'll be pushing, if going up the lock, the water is coming from underneath. Going down in the lock, the water is flowing out. So going down's a lot easier. But if you're returning, you've got to go up sometime. So when it's going up, that current's coming up from the bottom. It's pushing the boat through the keel into the wall of the lock. So 2 strong boat hooks, one in the back, one in the front, to kind of balance the boat, to keep the fenders kind of off as much as you can. And sometimes, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, sometimes you really got to lean into that hook to keep the boat from swinging one way or the other. So just keep that in mind, that it can be quite strong, huh?
One time, 30 years ago, when we were locking going down,
Mm-hmm.
the sailboat behind us wasn't tied up properly, and then all of a sudden, their deck started, leaning, and we had to yell at them because they were gonna get in deep trouble.
Yeah, so let's kind of go through that a little bit. You got your life jackets on, you got your fenders set, and you are going to have a line to attach to the bollard, okay? As you come in, depending on the way your prop rotates, a right-handed prop will move to the left in reverse. You want to come in at a slow speed. There's nothing wrong. At first you feel like I'm going so slow. Lockmaster's up there, and these guys, it's not a problem. Take your time, come in slow, and if you feel like you're coming in too fast, reverse early. If you feel like you're coming in too slow, just bump it a little bit. But you want to be able to come up to the wall where the bollard is, and there's about 6 bollards, maybe something like that are spread out. You want to be in the front or the back. Now, typically, you want to be in the front. If you're the first one in, other people will line up behind you, so go to the front. The front bollard is really close to the lock. As you pull up there, you're going to think, there's not another bollard here, but your bow can almost touch called the seal, the concrete seal, almost touch it before you find that last one, but it's down there. So, and they're painted yellow. As you look down the lock wall, you'll see that they stand out a bit more. So, so you're coming in, and you have your fenders out, you've got your life jackets on, you've talked to the block master, and they've got it on. And as you come in, there's this floating metal bollard that's in this slot. It's recessed into the wall, and it floats up and down, and you can see it moving as you're there. As you come up to the wall, you have got to throw a line around that bollard somehow. And there's lots of ways to do that. Somebody can be standing on the side as the helmsman, who should stay at the helm during the entire process. The helmsman doesn't need to run up to the front of the boat to try to fend off. Just go ahead and stay back in the boat because you have the greatest control there. So as you come in, probably the biggest challenge is getting this line around that bollard. So you flip it over there, the boat's still moving, it's kind of moving along, and you've just got one loop on there, okay? So you think, okay, well, let's put something like this on here. And so you're coming by, and missed the bollard, and the boat's still moving past. So you're sliding down the side deck, and you're trying to get it back on there. That's probably not the best. Well, you put 2 loops on it. Well, that might, or you could take a boat hook and put on there and loop that over there. Not a bad idea. Or you could have a line with a hose pipe in it that you can just rotate over and throw over the top, okay? Now this one is for Resolute, and it has a loop for the bow. I'm sorry, it's got a line for the bow and the stern winch, stern winch. So I take this end and tie it to the bow cleat, through the bow cleat, and then this end comes back to the winch. I always dock on the port side. That's if I put it reversed, it just pulls up against the wall. So this is on that winch, and I'm still back there, and I've got my boat hook, and I'm pushing off. And if Susan is with me, she's on the bow, and she's pushing off, okay? Before she reaches up there to push off, she has thrown this loop, which now is very easy to put over, and once she drops this on there, she immediately goes to the boat hook. I will take up the slack in the winch back here to bring the boat as close or as far away from the bollard as I need to be. Another nice thing about this is that these section of hose pipe is what rubs up against those curved plates that are on each side, which are usually pretty slimy. And so it's a lot easier to clean this hose pipe than to clean this line. So, and it keeps the loop open, and it makes it very easy. It's very frustrating when you're leaving, when the lockmaster says you go, and you cannot get the line off the bollard, you know. So this makes it much easier to get it off, take it off, throw it back on the deck. So as you pull in, then drop this over the bollard. The person in the back, the helmsman, has control of the boat. The person in the front has already moved up to the boat hooks, and you just get yourself ready. When you're ready, you go ahead and tell the lockmaster that you're ready. And they will probably request that. They also might start closing the lock doors before you're ready. Because they're trying to get other traffic through there. So you tell them you're ready, and what I usually say is resolute secure. That seems to work. And they will start the process. They close the doors, the boat starts going down. Excuse me. If it's down, it's a pretty easy ride. You don't have to worry too much. One of the reasons you have these larger fenders is that as it goes down the wall, sometimes it will rub hard on this side and sort of, but it'll keep falling down, but sometimes it can be very, very hard on the fenders. They can get pretty nasty looking. So, yeah.
As you're riding down, if you're going down, oftentimes the lock operator, they come out and talk to you. And one story is after you told us about time limits, we all do, we do this kind of a long line because the boat goes back and forth. One of the lockmasters came out and told us, asked Steve Bay why he was doing it that way, and why he didn't just have a single line.
Right. People will, motorboats are a little easier. You can just have a single line with somebody standing, you know, a fishing boat or something like that. It's not a big deal with some even 6-inch some small fenders. But, you know.
I think having a center cleat would probably be, when you need a cleat in the center of the boat.
No. Well, it depends. It depends on how, I mean, again, there are people in sailboats who do it that way, but I find it easier to control.
You would pivot more if you were only attached to the
I would,
center.
yes, you are correct.
Push it harder.
That's more like a spring line.
Yeah. I can loosen it up. I can tighten it up or loosen it up as
Too much to the wall, you can loosen that line.
yes, yeah. If the fenders are getting ready to pop up, you know, as the thing goes down, then I can loosen.
Spring line when you run it 4.5 too, which is something
Yeah.
you're not gonna get, if you get it pivoted in the middle, you can still get pinned. Whereas if you got it 4.5, you have a spring line, you know, it's the current pulling.
That
Mr. Joe Ballard, first time he went through, he tied his bow to the bollard. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So his boat.
Yes, that's not uncommon.
Use a chamber. There's nothing wrong with that, really, but it makes it a little difficult sometimes when you're ready to release. Well, yeah. You know, or,
Yeah.
you know, it's like horse and maneuver out there. Right. He didn't know.
Didn't he take Tom's class?
Nobody.
No.
Nobody told him.
Well, I mean, he had zero control over his boat with it swinging out just tight at the bow. If anything
As
were
long as
happening,
he
he
can
had to
fend
go
off the
through
wall.
Yeah, you'd be doing a big swim though.
You may be.
Put him in the chamber to do
I mean, if you're in the lock by yourself, but
Yeah.
what if there's a bunch of boats?
If you may be asked your registration or documentation number and vessel name, and so go ahead and be prepared to offer that information. Again, it's a little awkward when you're trying to fend your boat off the seawall, having to go down and find your documentation or your registration number, or look on the bow and kind of go down. Have that information available, and it's very rare they ask that, but that does get it as a request from time to time. Yeah.
Does the bollard ever get hung up?
Does
That's why
I've not
It,
had it happen.
I've never seen it happen. They will usually tell you if they have a problem bollard, and they'll say, don't go to number 4, and don't go to number 4.
If the log gets hung up, what do we do?
Pardon me?
you don't tie it, you let
Yeah, call them immediately, and
And you gotta let your boat leave.
yeah, if it's not moving. Now, sometimes, be careful, because sometimes they will hang for just a second, and they'll seem like they're not moving or should be moving as fast, so, right.
But I'm saying,
But-
if it does get hung up, you do what?
You got to call them immediately, and if you have to, cut the line. I mean, whatever it's going to take to save your vessel. If you're in the lock and they're going down, or even if they're going up, and you're at the helm and you have control, you're not going, I mean, you can control your own boat, you know, so that's an emergency situation. They will understand that, and
So
they
they'll
will.
stop the flow if you call.
No, they will not.
Well, then what's calling going to do for you?
What's that?
You call them and tell them you're hung up, what's that going to do for you?
They know what you're doing.
What
They
am I doing?
understand why you cut free.
Yeah, why are you off the bollard? Right,
Well, you
right.
say this like I know. I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
This is what you're gonna be doing. You're gonna be freaking out, and you're gonna be saying, oh shit.
Right. I would say over communicate rather than under communicate. Yes, you had a question?
How many boats go through a lock at one time?
You know, if you go during the week, it's not very many. You may be the only one. If you go on the weekends, it could be full. There could be 12 boats in there, and everybody's running their motor, and you know, and
All of us
And
on the
there's
same
nothing
side,
wrong with-
some hold more than others.
So that means half of them are past the bollards and half are not.
Yeah.
yeah, they can tie up against each other. Yeah, they'll tie up against each other.
You can raft up to another boat.
Mm-hmm.
So I
was in Wheeler Rock with 12 boats, and they were all wet.
I'm still not clear what happens, if I had to cut my line, what
Yeah.
happens to my boat?
You gotta
You gotta turn the
stand
engine
up.
off.
Yeah, well, you don't turn the engine off. When you're in the lock, don't turn your engine off.
I understand, so do
Yeah.
I have control of my boat?
Yeah.
I would assume you would.
I
Yeah.
would.
Well, how much you been drinking?
I don't know what kind of turbulence, I don't know what the dynamics are in this lock.
If the water's coming in and you're going up and you're free, then it's going to be a little rough and just be a challenging way. But just bump, steer. You know, the very worst thing that will happen is you will bump against the wall, and you're still going down. You're not hanging from.
I wouldn't think there's not a current situation, so it's not like it's gonna slam you forward into the gate.
Well, it's not gonna throw the
just
boat
coming
all
up
over the
from
place.
underneath.
No.
It's gonna make you, it's gonna.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in locks many times without any motors. I worked on a barge for them to sail the whole summer. And when they split a tow and put one person on that tow and shove it in there, you're tied off. So if something were to happen like that, I got a feeling somebody up top is gonna get a line from you on the mule that pulls the unmotored barges through. They're gonna line down.
Could be.
If you're out.
Yeah.
But it's not-
That you may be able to move over
I
to
just
another
have this
bollard.
vision That it's like really turbulent in there, but it's not.
No, it's only coming.
Yeah.
Here's another suggestion too, I think while we're talking about
Yeah.
this. If you've never been to the lock, you can go to the lock and you can walk up.
Yeah, watch 'em.
You can watch other
So,
people. go through it.
That's an excellent idea.
When you're running out there on the lake and there's a lot of current, you know it, but you don't really feel it or care, but when you get near a buoy and you see the can that's laid over like this, and there's this big swell going around it, all of a sudden it's very terrifying.
Yeah.
That's what you're.
Yeah.
You're in always have
All right.
to
We've gone down, and the lockmaster has sounded the horn, and the doors start opening. And I don't know how. What's that?
He doesn't sound the horn until they're open.
Yeah, but yeah, you're exactly right. They start opening the door, and when it's opened all the way, they'll sound the horn. You let go your line, and you push off. It can be rough on your boat to go down the wall in forward while you're trying to escape with your fenders bumping, kind of bumping you. So it's best if you before you put it in forward, push away from the wall a little bit and get sort of a run to start. Once you clear the lock doors, then you just call back and say, resolute clear. Okay? It's also nice if you will say something like, hey, Lockmaster, thank you for a nice ride. Hope you have a great day. So just a little courtesy. Yeah.
Backtrack a little bit. So if there's gonna be a lot of boats going in this lock, are you always supposed to go as far forward as you can?
Yes.
Okay.
They will say, if there's a whole bunch of boats waiting, they will tell you to go as far forward as you can.
Now,
And that's the
do we
reason
get to
I'm saying
dictate
it,
right or left, or they tell us?
it's rare that they will tell you. Yeah, it's rare they will tell you. If they do tell you, and you have a right-handed prop, because I can't state enough the value of as you pull up to the bollard and you're moving forward and you may be going a little bit too fast, if you put that in reverse and you have a right-handed prop, the back of the boat the boat just slides to the left up against the wall. Perfect. And it stops you. So that's the reason that the person at the helm needs to stay at the helm and control that boat, put it in reverse until the fenders, or forward if you have to, till the fenders are between the bollards. The two fenders that you put out are between the bollards. Yes. Tina, did you have? Oh, I thought you had a question.
So are they,
Don't point your pen at me.
so how do we know which side to put our fenders on before we get there? Or is it
Well,
our call?
you can ask. You can ask. If they don't say anything and there's not a bunch of boats there, you just choose. They don't care which side. But somebody's point, every once in a while there'll be somebody that says, "Well, we sure like you on the starboard side. I got a right-handed prop. Okay, I guess you want the port side." Yeah,
But that would be dictated before we get in there.
Yeah, I have
Yes.
myself hanging out before every week's pickup.
Yeah.
Should be set up before you ever enter the lot.
That's what I was asking.
Address your
Yeah.
original question.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm calling lock master, lock operator, I always ask him, are there any bollards that are not working? Just
Good question.
Gets to tell me,
Yeah.
because, and one time I said, well, I plan to go on my port side about this, and Hickory says, can't do that. There aren't any bollards over there. So,
Well, that's good to know.
With most, I think I could turn Resolute around in a lock.
Oh, really?
Yes, I think I could turn
I
Resolute.
guarantee you I could not turn mine over.
Well, okay.
Well, you have this image in your head if you've not been through a lot before, that when it fills up, it becomes like a jet tub.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
what I'm
It's
thinking.
not, it
That's
does
exactly
not
what-
Right.
look like, it does not look like that, it's not
I'm
that,
thinking this big,
like the scene in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, no, it's not like.
Before we go on to anchoring, I'll relate my first experience locking through Old Hickory Lock. I pulled in there. I was bringing a boat back from Kentucky Lake to come here and be a member of the club. And I pulled in, and I had gotten a brochure from TVA about how to lock through. And they showed a line from the bow to a bollard and a line from the stern to a bollard. I had no idea. So I'm going forward, tying a line. I'm pulling out backwards, trying to reach this bollard. I don't have enough line to get. I mean, it's a big distance. Lockmaster readings over. He goes, "Hey, you just need to tie off to one." he didn't say stupid, but he almost did.
Well, a
So
large, I guess, probably does use two, a square.
what use two what?
Maybe uses two balls.
Oh, I don't know how many they use. They may not even need them. They just fit perfectly in there. I mean, seriously, they just.
bounce around in there.
Yeah, they just float around in there. Okay, any more questions on locking?
I'll say, been through several locks, it is kind of, lock masters, it's, they can drain and fill fast, and they can drain and fill slow. So, just because you've been through one, doesn't mean every one is gonna be like that.
They're all different.
It's up to the lock master how fast that lock drains and how fast that lock fills.
which
So,
is, also to your question about if it's boiling up hungry, if you're coming up, I've had the Pickwick lock master say, okay, I'm gonna give you an easy ride up, because he can open only half of it.
Yeah,
And
or
so the part that's right under you may not be as turbulent as the other part.
So basically, if you're humble and you admit that you have no idea what the hell you're doing, then they'll be nice.
He may
Well,
take
you
it.
don't
You
use
don't
it
have to say that, it depends on him.
right.
yeah, her gets a her. Could be a her.
I want you to be safe. Did you tell what radio channel to hail them as you're approaching?
Yes.
What's it?
Did you announce what radio channel?
Yes, you hail them on 16, and you go to. They'll tell you the working channel they want you to go to. Immediately go there and acknowledge this is Resolute back on 14, and then you're communicating. Stay on that channel until you clear the lock. Until you are clear of the lock. Then
Say resolute?
you can. Yeah, actually you do. Insert blank.
Hey, we took the class, they said say resolution.
Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
If all the ballers are used, are you obligated to wrap up in your boat number 7 or 12, whatever?
You know, I would say that, I've never had that situation, but I would say that yes, that you would have to make a choice. If most of the time, the sailboats are kind of the last ones in. And so, so you have to kind of look at the situation, assess the situation, and a good decision might be to go, I'll catch the next one. Yeah, yeah. I mean, don't hesitate to do that. There's usually plenty of room in that marshaling area for that to happen. And so just, just another time.
Part of that, Paul, when I went to Wilson Lock one time, it was looper, bunch of loopers.
Oh,
And so there were
great loop.
bunch of big crews, so they were wrapping up 3 at a time to each bobber. And I was gonna hold back because I knew, I saw these guys heading to the lock. And so I called them, and the guy on the last boat in called me and said, why don't you come in behind us? I said, no, you know, he said, no, we'll wait for you. I said, it'll be 20 minutes before I can get there. Fine. I have bothered myself. So it's like, no. So it just depends on who's in there, how courteous they are.
Right.
You know.
Personality is
And they're
all
all
Yeah.
communicating on the same channel.
Do-
They're all talking
do-
about it, so you can hear everybody.
Do not let them know that you are upset. Do not ever let them, you know. No. I'm not. I've heard other people have conversations like that, and it's just like, oh Lord.
Everybody has to be on your schedule, I would imagine, and you cannot be upset, like, you're
No.
not in control, so.
Correct. Right.
You can go with it.
Right. Yeah. You're.
Being nice to the lockmaster or lock whatever is makes your venture through the lock much smoother.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sorry.
Forgive me, but you can send up a smoke signal.
How's that?
I was just thinking like popping all of them.
Oh, having a cigarette and sending up smoke signals. I'm here.
I mean, that's a joke.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, I was gonna ask, if I'm mistaken, I know Old Hickory Lock, there's always a lockmaster there,
Yeah.
always. But some locks
What's it?
are not manned
Which locks?
24/7.
Which locks?
Cordell Hall.
No.
And
There
so
you will
need to
find.
call them,
Yes.
They've got to get somebody to the lock
Right.
at a certain time.
That the same thing can occur. Yes, and that's true. And you'll find those. That's rare. That they have an unmanned lock that you have to call and schedule. But if you do, that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. The same thing. The same thing.
Word of mouth.
Coming to Tom's class.
Yeah.
Listening.
The same thing can happen with railroad bridges. Some of the some of the downtown Nashville Railroad Bridge is 47 feet. So hey, maybe you might make it through under there. You know.
Never try to make
What's
it.
that?
Stuck down there. I called all my friends at CSX from when I worked
There you have. Yeah.
45 minutes under a 3-knot
Cor-
current.
correct.
I don't know what you do with that.
Clarksville, you may have to call a day ahead of time. You know, and
They're supposed to answer the radio.
Well, if he had not worked for CSX, we might still be down there waiting.
right. As you get further south, you'll find bridges that may be only 10 or 12 or 15 feet above the water, and you've got it's all of a sudden it's like I got to call them day ahead of time, and I'm right here. You know.
When David was bringing the boat back from down in the Gulf, he contacted, if I'm not mistaken, you contacted the lock and lockmasters prior.
Yeah.
Just to say, I'm projecting this, what do you want me to do a day ahead or whatever as I need that. And so he got the information he needed before he ever needed it right then.
And you might find that the lock is being maintained, or that it's closed, or that it's up for repair, or that there's a barge stuck in it or something like that. So always check ahead of time.
Something was released recently about, is it Lake Barkley? The lock is gonna be down for a time? In this summer?
Yeah, it could be. They have a scheduled maintenance on the Tom Bigby, for example, and it's well posted, well ahead of time.
So do we just have to call each one of these, or is there a publication where we can get this information?
Online is, you can get all the information that you need. Everything has to do with who's in charge, Corps of Engineers or TVA, or Wildlife Resources, or, so you just kind of,
Now, where's the
You
train?
have a river chart, you know the charts?
I have a
lines?
chart, yeah.
Yeah.
On the back, when you're getting ready to approach one, or ahead, on the back of the page that shows that will be information.
Well, that's what I wondered. I wondered if it was on the chart. So
yeah. It'll say low steel, this elevation, and then it'll
Does it
say,
also have contact information?
It does.
a lot of times it will, but that changes. For example, I mean, it's been like L&N Railroad at Clarksville, it was CNSX Railroad, and now I think it's, Corman, right, so,
I was gonna share too, just, this is super basic, but some people, I didn't know this till I traveled on there, but obviously you should plan ahead, but also as you're approaching bridges and overpasses, there generally is measurements on the bridge.
most
that
times there are.
see
Shows you the
how much
depth of
clearance
All
you
right.
have before you.
And they are
That's
correct.
the last time you want, but that's
Right,
the
and
last
Yeah.
that's
resort.
the time you wanna find it out,
Mo-
but if you're down
most-
at all, it is there.
Most of the time,
Before you master your boat, you
yeah,
can see.
but even then, if you're, for example, my mast is 47 feet tall. Well, as you're approaching a 52-foot bridge, it looks like you're going to hit it, and right.
It could be 300.
And so you look at those side,
Well, some of the power lines aren't that tall, and you're
Right.
still like,
you look at the side numbers, and they're actually pretty accurate. They're not always there.
Train bridges normally open unless a train's coming? No.
Yeah,
well,
Yeah.
now there's one bridge downtown that is, every time we've been down there, it's been open.
But it's out of commission.
yeah. I think it's now out of commission.
Okay, but the
Yeah,
second
yeah.
one, when they
Okay, so any more questions on locking through?
I would say.
Yeah,
about
go ahead.
walking through, okay. I was talking about, do you remember John and Shirley?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I remember they came back from one of their voyages, and they were talking about when they were going underneath the bridge, they were very.
They had a tall
they-
mast.
They had tall masts.
Yeah.
And they were really unsure whether they were gonna clear it or not, but they thought they could. And what they did is they turned around before, instead of going head into it.
Backed
they
into
turned
it.
around and they started backing under. the
I've done that
bridge.
before too. It's actually,
Because if at any point
If you're
they
going
felt
down
they started to hit, they can immediately drive out a lot better than you can back out.
right. If you're concerned, don't have a head of steam. Don't be going 7 knots under that bridge and just crossing your fingers that you'll make it to that point. If you're going against the current, then just go very slowly. You're not in a rush. And if you're going with the current, then like you say, back down, or put it in reverse and let the current sort of ride you underneath carefully. Yeah.
I was gonna share one more thing
All right.
about being in the locks and the whole turbulent thing that you talked about. He prepared me for the worst before we went through the locks. Like
You expected
all overboard
the
and-
Kraken.
So, but what he said to me that really made sense once I did it is you're not pushing the boat off. You're holding the pole and you're holding it still. It becomes an extension of you. You're just holding fast, holding steady,
Yeah.
rigid.
Right.
So you're not pushing, because then you might lose your balance, fall over. You're more just holding steady. So I actually sat on the bow.
Yeah.
And I just held the
Put it in your
pole,
gut.
held it stiff. So I
Right.
just let it feel.
Right.
Push
And I was-
really hard, and it scoots off, there you go. Boom.
And it goes and it.
I'll make Julie's do that.
You just gotta-
When you're going up, the boat can move fairly quickly, bow and stern. And to your point, if you think, okay, I'm gonna run down and grab a beer real quick, like by the time you get back up, your bow rail will be into the wall, and your running light will your red running light will be crushed. Yeah, that's right. That helms person needs to stay at the helm unless there is just an absolute emergency, because you want to maintain control of the boat all the time.
And if you like really clean equipment and you don't want to use a boat hook on that nasty ball, another thing.
Use your hands.
That we were told a long time ago, and the first time we went on the trip on the river, was go to Lowe's and get a 1.25 closet rod and put it out, it will not collapse.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times those collapsing boat hooks have almost collapsed in the worst possible times.
I have to extend mine out, but some of that may have to be.
And that's the best thing. If you don't have to, don't extend it out. They usually come in 6 or 8 foot, and that's all you need. Yeah.
That's actually a good idea.
Piece of closet.
Dedicated
Yeah.
just for that. That's a good idea.
Okay. Anything else on locking?
Sometimes the old Hickory lock is closed at midnight.
Yeah.
Don't they close at night?
I'll say this about locking door.
All right.
It's not as scary and as hard as we've made it.
No, it is.
Yeah. You can do it. You know.
Yeah, but they had to be able to get the admission price, you know, they had to justify the admission price.
You gotta
Yeah.
just be aware that it's a very serious thing and it can go sideways. on
You
So
don't
have
want
to
to fall
take-
under.
You gotta
Right.
stay in position.
Yeah.
You gotta stand
Plan
your
ahead of
ground.
time. Have everything set up.
I guess it should be,
Communicate with the lock operator.
I didn't hear you say it, but it's my understanding you do not want to cleat that line just in case the volume is up, right?
Cleat the
You do
line.
want to clean it, you just need to be able to undo
You
it.
just need to pay attention.
But you know how to unclean
Well,
it.
I mean, I've got mine.
I guess you write it to see, but you hold it.
I've got my.
I mean, I always clean it.
I'll cleat mine.
I'm not saying-
Mine's on a winch.
I've never had a bollard stick.
What?
I had one hang up.
No, I've never. I had them hang. I've had them hang, but I've never had them.
Yeah, they hang for a few feet
right.
and then they'll pop. It's a weird.
They never tried to
It's
lift
like,
it.
whoa, what the hell is that? But it hangs. It's not a little job
Does it try to pull your boat out of the way?
Maybe get a stick in there, with debris or something.
I mean, it's got so much weight on it, just
There-
trying, it's suspended.
There can be.
Trying to come down, it just.
You mentioned debris. There can be a fair amount of debris in locks, especially when the conditions are like this. And so sometimes when you come in, you may be greeted with this, 4 or 5 foot deep wall of debris. And you just have to kind of push through it carefully, put it in forward. As you hit the debris, put it in neutral, kind of coast through. You can put it in forward after that. Again, taking your time is the best thing. Don't be in a rush. And
Because if you, like you said, if you prepare for everything that he's telling you, and you prepare for, not the worst, but all situations, once you go through it and you go, oh, well, that's.
I understand now.
I understand.
Right.
Now, it makes sense.
Right.
But you
She
do
was
need to be
terrified.
prepared,
She did, I didn't make her.
because it all happens
She was
fast.
terrified. And when I took her through the first time.
That sounds like defensive talk, doesn't it? Defensive talk.
Probably seen more people walking through, other boaters, tie up to something on the wall that does not move than I've seen a bollard stick.
Yeah.
You do not want to tie up to the ladder. You do not want to tie up those other things.
They've got big hooks that are like the size of your.
You
No.
want to tie up to the gate. We saw
Right.
people tie up to the gate one time,
Yeah.
right in front of our house. He's tied up to the freaking gate.
The gates that open and close.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on.
Does the not say something?
Yeah.
Let's go on to anchor. Let's go on to anchoring if we need to come back to
Okay, so I just want to
locking.
make sure this is clear.
All right.
If you hear that conduits is hanging off the wall someday.
All right, come with a sharp
and I cleaned
knife.
it, I'll say, well, Tom told me it was okay.
Yeah.
He told you to cut it.
Always have a sharp knife handy. Always have a sharp knife handy. All right. Okay.
We have that knife.
Let's talk about anchoring, okay? Anchoring. Now, most people think that anchoring is tying a line to an anchor and throwing it over and going to bed. That's not anchoring. That's gotten people into a lot of trouble. If you have a few things to decide about your anchor. Not if you have chain on it, which you must, is how much chain do you have on it. I would recommend at least 15 feet. If you can handle more, then put more chain on there. 30 feet would be really, really nice, okay? And this is the reason that chain is so important. In addition to being chafe-proof, if you've anchored and there's some rocks around and your chain is rubbing up against the rocks, it's not a problem, okay? If it's up against rope, it could be a problem. You may find yourself waking up in the middle of the river with a barge barreling down on you, tooting their horn. I'm just going to draw sort of a picture of the classic anchor, and I'm going to put a line on here up to your boat, and that angle is going to be difficult for this fluke to bite into the bottom, okay? It would be better if the angle was more like that.
Tom, can you turn that? I don't think it's
Sure, sure.
not all the way, just turn it where it's square with the audience.
How's that? Good? You want that anchor, and if the shaft of this anchor is here, or if it's here, it makes a big difference. This anchor has a much better chance of biting into the, and the only way you're going to get that is if you put some chain down here, and it cantilevers. That chain is heavy enough, it will cantilever the anchor, and it will give you the right angle to get your anchor set. If there's any question, back down. Any question at all, back down, okay? If you go out here and you are drifting backwards with the wind, and you are put your anchor out and you're paying it out, and all of a sudden you cleat it off and the boat comes around and jerks and holds, you're anchored, okay? Otherwise, if you're not sure, back down on it. If sometimes an anchor will just catch a little bit, just enough to make you feel like you're anchored, but you're not. And if you back down on it, it'll break that little bit of mud or dirt, rock, and you'll start drifting, and you'll go, okay, I need to do this again. There's nothing worse for a good night's sleep than waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning feeling your boat going like this instead of like this. Because you, or somebody's knocking on your boat, yeah, yeah. Could you push off, please, you know? So if you don't have chain, go ahead and get chain. And 15 feet is good, 30 feet is probably better. And then tie probably 100 feet of line. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's a lot of line. You know, you got 30 feet of chain, you got 100 feet of line, it's 130 feet. Well, this is the reason. The depth of the water has everything to do with how much you pay out, okay? So as you lay your anchor on the bottom and you're starting to drift back or you're motoring back, then you need to know how deep the water is to know how much to let out. In storm, in bad conditions, 7-to-1 with chain is not a bad ratio. Now that's like 40, 50 mile an hour winds that you're talking about that can handle. If you're anchored here, the rope, and you're a little unsure, let a little extra out. Don't hesitate to do that. Now, how do you know how much you've let out? How do you know how deep the water is? Well, hopefully you have a depth finder. If not, just let your anchor down, okay? And because you have marked your anchor chain or anchor line, you know that that's 10 feet or that's 20 feet, okay? Because you'll feel the anchor hit the bottom. And so that's another way. So once you determine the depth, 10 feet, and you've looked at the weather, and it looks nice tonight, they're calling for light winds, then maybe 3-to-1, so 30 feet. Well, that's quite a bit. You're at the end of your chain, if you've got 30 feet of chain, you're at the end of your chain, so you tie it off, and you go to bed. You got 30 feet of chain out there, and while you're in bed, you start hearing this grinding sound, like the bottom of your boat's hitting rocks. Anybody ever heard that? Huh? Turtles biting the bottom of your boat. Yes, chewing the fiberglass to get to you. That is your chain twisting in the water, okay? It drives you nuts. Let out just a little more line and cleat off to about 6 feet of rope line, and that will act as sort of a shock absorber and a sound deadening so that it won't travel up through your boat. If you don't have that, and you're only in 5 feet of water and you've got 30 feet of chain out, or 20 feet of chain, you can hook a snubber on there, which is just sort of a chain hook with a nylon line that comes back, or Dacron line that comes back to the cleat. You cleat it off, take up that slack, and that'll deaden the noise, okay? So, so if you hear that sound, get up, let the line, get it out to the line, or put a snubber on there to kind of quiet it down just a little bit. So 3 to 1 is a pretty good ratio, and I think a lot of times, a lot of people will anchor and sleep well that night at 3 to 1. As the wind picks up, then you'll need to let more out. And so if you're in 10 feet of water and the wind and a tornado is predicted to come, or we do get these Dacho winds, these downpour, these downdraft winds and stuff like that. Don't last very long, but if you're 3 to 1, there's a good chance it'll pull that anchor out. So go to bed, make it 7 to 1, all right? And that you can sleep well that night. You may feel the boat pitch around, but you'll sleep well that night. 7 to 1, it's 10 feet, you need 70 feet. You got 30 feet of chain, then you've used up 40 feet of your line, and that gives you, so if you're 100 foot is not an unreasonable amount. If you're in 10 feet of water, if you're in 20 feet of water, then you're going to use every bit of that if you're 7 to 1. I would suggest that you have at the end of your line, of your anchor line, some sort of cuttable material that will let you know that the end of your line has arrived. There's been more than one sailor or boater that has paid out their line, paid out their line, paid out their line, and it's gone.
Is that why they call it the bitter end?
It could be. It could be. So I have some 3/4 inch 3-strand, but on the end of that I've got like a 1/4 inch of braided line so that it comes out of the deck hole and it stops right there. And I have a choice of whether I get back and run the motor forward to take up that slack or get it back, or whether I'll cut it. There is, on rare occasion, you may need to cut your anchor line. If somebody's bearing down on you with a big old boat and you're at anchor and you can't, and they're on top of your anchor already, you cannot pull that anchor up and avoid them, then you want to undo your anchor line, let that run out, cut it, and run, and get your boat out of the way. So just keep that in mind for those 2 reasons. You don't want to lose your anchor. And the other thing is that in case of emergency, you've got a quick way to cut a small line instead of sitting there going, oh God, this 3/4 inch line is tough to cut. So.
Small line, a floating line?
No, mine's not. Mine's just a regular old, like, I think it's 3/8. Dacron.
Would it be enough floating anyway?
Yeah. Okay. Don't when you put your anchor out, don't let it pile up. Don't throw your anchor out and let it pile up and then start backing down on it, because it's just as likely that chain will tangle up with your flukes of your anchor and it'll be trying to hook backwards or something. So you'll never get it done until you pull it up and straighten it back out. Put your anchor out enough to hit the bottom, and then continue to pay it out as you kind of back down, or let the wind back you down or the current back you down, and then you should get a bite. And once you get that bite, then you can kind of clean up. Because you have markers on your anchor road, you know how much you've let out. So, what's that?
Very important, markers on your anchor line.
Yes. Now, everybody has different ways of doing that. I paint chain, and so I've got a code that's like, red and yellow. It's like the first mark is 10 foot at red, the next mark is 10 foot at yellow, or 20 feet at yellow, and then it's red and yellow, and then yellow and red. And so I've got this little system where I think it's every 20 feet. 10 feet may be a little too much, but it's up to you. You can do your own. That has to be done. I have to repaint every 2 or 3 years. The anchor windlass chips the paint off over time. I think Joe uses wire ties. He uses wire ties of different colors to designate depths. I know they sell these little ribbons that you can put on there. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. They have for rope. You can feed those through there, and it'll give you an eye. I think they're actually numbered, so you could, yeah, just some way that you have an idea about how much line you have let out, and to mark your anchor or your rope. Also, keep in mind. Okay, so the other thing too, is the type of anchor. The type of anchor that you choose. As you know, anchors come in a variety of shapes and sizes. There is the standard Danforth, that's the flat flukes on the sides, that kind of tilt, that pivots and gets down in the water. Great for mud and sand. There's the plow, that's a plow. I mean, it's the CQR plow. It will plow into sand, through sand and mud. But for rock and grass, it's great. And then there's combinations that will be a plow shape with wider flukes on it to kind of bite down, or weighted at the end or something like that. I think, Joe, you've got a Rockna, which is kind of that combination of plow and Danforth kind of anchor. I carry both. I carry a Danforth because most of the anchoring that I have done has been the waterways or sand, so the Danforth works great. I carry also a Delta Setfast for rock and grass. So if you are anchoring in grass beds, which I hope you don't do, but if you are anchoring in grass beds, then and you've got a Danforth, the grass will get caught between the shank and the flukes, and it will just accumulate, and it'll never pivot or never bite down. You'll pull it up, and it'll be just a bunch of grass on it. Take your or change over to the other anchor. Go to a plow that can actually get through the grass, get down to the bottom, and start digging in. Also for rock, the plow is a much better choice, but rock is not something that we typically see around here. Not until you get up to the northeast or the Canaries that you run into rock. I think Joe had an experience in the Azores of anchoring in rock, and I think you had 70 feet of chain, and you've got a big rock now.
Yeah, we had like 180 feet of chain.
Yeah, out, and was still hoping that everything would hold. So anchoring in rock is quite a challenge.
I have a quick question. We've been on a boat before where they also had a little round anchor on the back side to stabilize them. Do we need that on our sailboats?
A stern anchor?
I guess.
Yeah.
Like a mushroom? Yeah.
I carry a stern anchor. For traveling the river, I would carry a stern anchor. For this reason, as the barge passes you, they suck the water out of the river basically as they're passing. They displace a lot of water, and they will pull you out into the river. And some places that's not a problem. Other places it could be a problem. There might be another barge on the other side or coming right behind that one late at night, so it's always a good idea to just throw a stern anchor out and it doesn't take much. A small anchor, a short section of chain. Sometimes you can even whip it around and throw it to shore, and get to hook on to something. But it can help keep you in. The other issue would be, like you're talking about, that you're in a chop. The wind's blowing one direction, the current's going the other, and you want to be able to not lay like this at anchor, but lay like this. And you put that stern anchor out. It can really, it takes a lot of stress. That stern anchor takes a lot of stress. And I find it's better just to kind of go with nature. I mean, eventually it's going to chafe, unless you have a really big line, it'll chafe fighting against those waves, and you'll end up losing your anchor and drifting off.
Well, we don't have one. We're just on somebody's boat, not a sailboat.
Oh.
And so I was like, because they said, do y'all have one on your sailboat? And we're like, no. And they were like, well, don't you need one? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd recommend a mushroom.
There's, another similar issue is two anchors. Some people will say that you need to have two, if it's really going to be bad, put 2 anchors out. And I've never had much luck with that either, because while it may hold you there, it rotates around enough that when you get ready to pull those anchors up, it's almost impossible. And so, you know, buy a little heavier main anchor and some chain. Yeah.
What we've had, but since we're in this class, I was like, well, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
There is one place here on our river that is perfect. If you're taking a trip up to Kentucky Lake, there's a popular stop called Dover Island, where people get in behind the island. It's just off the channel, and they'll throw anchor stern and forward, and you just basically nose it.
Stay in the middle.
And it keeps you from smacking
Yeah.
the shoreline. You sleep there overnight on your way up to Kentucky Lake.
Yeah.
That's about the only place I really know that it's important
So,
for us.
so you've determined your depth. You know how much road you need to have out. You've got some chain, and you've got a proper anchor. And the anchor needs to be for displacement, not size, for displacement. Now, size has some play because of windage, but the displacement's probably the more important. So, if you know, West Marine, for example, you can go in there and you can see what size Danforth you need to get based on the length of your boat or displacement. Go with displacement every time. You've let it out. If you have a chain, and even with line, generally you can feel, if you carefully put your hand on the anchor chain as it's moving along the bottom, you can feel it moving along the bottom, and you can feel it catch. So if you feel it and it's vibrating, it's moving along the bottom. It's not catching. So if you're curious, if you're like, oh, did it catch? You know, put your hand on there. If it's vibrating, it's not. You've caught. If it is vibrating, you most likely are not. So you've let out the proper amount, but you forgot. And you mentioned what island was that? The island that you were talking about on the Dover Island. It's a good example. It can be pretty deep back on that side, on that back side. It is pretty back in there. It can be pretty deep back on that back side. I think maybe even 20 feet. And so you want to say 3 to 1, you got 60 feet out. But to your point, oh, wait a minute, this is narrow. I don't have swinging room. So make sure that when you anchor, you are considering swinging room. Now, what is swinging room? Well, it could be simply defined as just if you had to rotate around your anchor 360 degrees, okay? But also consider that while you are being rotated around, the anchor is going to have to reset. And during that period of time, you may move into the shore before it resets. And so just remember, so for example, you know that there's a strong wind coming that night. You feel protected back in there, but a big gust comes through. You're rotated around, your anchor lets go for just a moment to reset, and you're into the bank. Because on the bank, from the bank, you're only 10 feet behind you and forward. It looks good, you know. So to your point, drop a stern anchor out, and you know, again, it doesn't have to be some big, huge thing. It can, you know, something just to kind of keep the boat in the middle there. What's that?
Something that just keeps you from swinging too far.
Yeah. So be aware of other boats around you that are anchoring. Make sure, don't try to crowd into an anchorage. Do not crowd into an anchorage. Don't feel like, okay, well, hey, there's enough room between you and me. Well, what's the problem, you know? Well, there could be a lot of problems. They usually occur at 2 o'clock in the morning when some little storm comes through, you know, and you're both naked on the bow trying to, you know, get... Or somebody's knocking on, or waking you up, hey, you know, with a horn or something like that. So don't force an anchorage if you have to. Go someplace that's not quite as nice as that, but respect other people and understand first come, first serve, okay? If you are there before somebody else and they encroach on your space and it becomes a problem, then it's their responsibility to move off. What I usually do is, if I feel concerned, I will just say, hey, you think your anchor's okay? You think your anchor's good and all that sort of stuff? And they'll go, oh, yeah, yeah, okay, fine. But it puts them on notice. It's like, hey, watch it. Yeah, you're.
Is there any special technique for the stern anchor to set? In other words, would you don't just drop it?
No.
You're gonna pull up on the bow anchor to set it, and then
Yes, there could be several ways of doing that. One is just mine. I can get on the side of the boat and I got 15 feet of chain and the anchor, the tan forth. I just throw it out there and then kind of pull it in until I hook something. But what's that? I'm also but I'm changing my ways. Yeah. But to your point, an excellent way to do that is once you get your bow anchor set, then you just crank it up or move forward. And I'm sorry, you set your stern anchor and then you move forward to set that stern anchor. Yeah.
Either way, you're gonna have to pay one of them out a long way.
Yeah, and that's where that 100-foot line can come in, is because you can pay it out a whole bunch, drop your stern anchor, and then pay it in to the level that, like 3-to-1, whatever you need. Around here, you have to be real careful about hard mud, hard dirt. I don't know what you call it, but Tennessee clay, whatever it is. But you just won't. You're not going to anchor there. Okay, you're just not going to anchor there. The river, as you know, the river meanders. Okay, and so often it will etch out any loose stuff on one side, and it'll be great on the other side. So don't continue to try to anchor in a bad spot. Just try it a couple times. If it don't work, move to a different location. Anchoring along the river is not a bad thing. Most people are afraid of it. It is not a bad thing. Again, pull over to a place that looks. I always pull up to an inside curve for barges, and the downriver side of an inside curve, because they're coming around a curve, and that usually is also where there's this nice, gently sloping, muddy bottom. And so just the inside, the downriver inside curve, and get as close to shore as you can. The rivers typically, they might go up or down 6 inches, okay? So you're pretty sure that if it's 8 foot and you're a 6 foot keel, you're okay, So
outside the official channel.
yeah, that's right, absolutely outside the official channel, which is getting to be more and more challenging. If you haven't traveled the rivers recently, the marker buoys they just don't replace them as quickly, and it's almost as if these barge captains are playing game. Yeah, I got one. Yeah, if you.
Can I add something about the stern anchors?
What's that?
Can I add something about the stern anchors?
Yeah.
If you're going into an anchorage with other boats, if they don't have stern anchors, you don't. If they do, you do.
That's right.
Because you don't want some swinging and some not.
Right. And to that point, there's a big difference between a boat swinging that has a rope rode, and just a short chain and a rope, and a boat swinging that has chain. If a boat has chain, it's rock solid. All that generally happens is that the boat moves back a little bit, the cantilever tightens up, and it comes back when the wind lightens up a little bit. Rope, you'll move a lot. So if the boat in front of you has rope, you have chain, and a storm blows up, they're going to blow into you because you're going to be sitting there. So yeah.
How do you estimate the diameter of rope or size of chain for your boat?
That's really dependent on what you can handle. So, seriously, I have a manual windlass. I have a windlass that you crank manually. Joe has an electric one. Yeah, Joe has an electric one. Yeah, and that's right. So,
Yeah, I got you.
yeah, so you're going to have to handle. So you're going to have to handle the anchor. Well, first of all, not only do you have to handle the anchor, you've got to get the anchor off the bottom. Now let's say that you've been out here, you've anchored for the night, there was this quick storm that came through, blew 30 miles an hour. That anchor is in the mud, okay? So, and your boat held up fine, you know, just, so that anchor's in the mud. So you've got to get it up off the bottom. Everybody's got their own methods, but if you don't have a windlass, if you don't have an electric or manual windlass, sometimes you can use a winch. Sometimes you can put your feet and pull, okay? Have somebody at the motor in the back moving forward as you take up slack. And then usually what you need to do is, once you've motored as far as you can, then take up as much slack as you can and cleat it off and let it set. And be patient, yeah, because it'll slowly work itself out of the mud. The person in the back could also be motoring forward slowly, carefully, and kind of help pull it out. Yeah, so just, and then here's another thing. Right. Here's another thing is that, okay, now that you've got that anchor up, you start pulling it up and you go, oh crap, that chain is mud covered and there's big old globs of mud on the anchor. What do?
Power washer.
Well, some people have a deck wash. What I do is I just cleat it off. I take a boat hook, grab the chain, and shake it. And it cleans the chain and it gets the mud off. If it's just the chain that gets clean, then I'll crank that up and the anchor's a little bit muddy. I'll poke at it a little bit, shake it in the water, or go forward slowly a little bit, and it eventually drops off.
Use the bucket on a rope, the collapsible bucket on a rope.
Yeah, you know what that is? Yeah, that's called a bob. Bucket on the bow. A bob. That can be a bath or a rinse, you know, for your anchor. Yeah. I was trying to think if there's anything else on anchoring.
Well, it's also, as he stated, there are tables like a lot of these.
Yeah, if you're looking
Yeah,
at
so
something
for your
your
size anchor and your weight boat,
yeah.
X diameter minimum.
Yeah.
Based on the weight of your boat too, it's not just
Right.
the size.
The size.
Yeah, of course, I'll go bigger.
Yes.
How many dumb things would I need to do to get that rope, chain, whatever, wrapped on my prop or wrapped around the keel?
Oh, good question. You would have to do really just one, I think, is you moving forward with the anchor line dangling behind your boat. That's the reason you bring that line up tight before you motor forward, or else just give it a little time to kind of pop up.
Don't go forward faster than.
But if you do it, it will stop your motor, and it does. I mean, it'll stop. I have a 4-cylinder diesel, and it'll stop your motor, and you'll have to get out and cut the lines and get it free, and hopefully it'll start right back up. Huh?
Pull in the road first until you have the road straight up and down.
Yeah. That way you don't have to worry about.
That way, if you need to motor forward, then that will help you.
You were
Right.
hoping we said like 20 things you'd have to do. And you're like, there's no way I'm gonna do 20 dumb things at once. But he said just one, right?
See, I mean, I joked about the fishing thing, but it really, honestly, it is like fishing. You need to take that line in. You wouldn't just try to roll over top of the fish and yank him out of there. You want to.
The general rule, there is a general rule, it's usually one oh shit overrides 20 attitudes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's anchoring is something that's best done out there. And so, you know, go out and anchor and play around a little bit. You know, back down on it, see how it feels, and practice.
Right there. You don't have to
Yeah.
go traveling. You can practice right.
The only way that's gonna happen if someone isn't paying attention, do not have the boat go faster than the line.
Yeah.
So if you keep that angle, don't go past vertical. But that's communicating with the helmsperson.
Make some communication signals between the person on the bow pulling the anchor up and the person at the helm. Don't yell at
This-
each other because the yelling gets more and more and more and angry.
Okay, now this seminar
Hand signals.
This seminar is not, this relationship building is not part of this. But to your point, yeah, it is. It's very awkward and embarrassing to be anchoring or locking and yelling at each other. Okay? I mean, you know, Either if you're anchored, you're on the water, sound travels incredibly well. You know, and I mean, you can be assured that all your anchoring neighbors are going, oh, what's going on over there, you know? And if you're in a lock, it's like an echo chamber when the water's down. And so the lockmaster's up there just enjoying themselves immensely. Yeah, Tina?
Now, even though it's not relationship building,
Yeah,
sometimes it's windy and you don't hear.
Yeah.
If you're not looking at it,
correct.
I can't hear you.
Well, to,
Right, so that's the hand signal.
Yes.
yeah, hand signals are really good.
Or headset.
Yeah, headsets can be used also. Most of the time, if you have a traveling buddy, then y'all work, you know, a couple times you work together. You know, the first time you might have a little hiccup, but, you know, you idiot. Yeah.
You know, I read something the other day, and I hadn't heard this the whole time that we sailed. And it's like, when somebody's coming up to a dock, and you've got 2 people or 3 people on the boat, and
Yeah.
they're communicating, whether they're talking or they're yelling or whatever, don't be the person or the 5 on the dock that are all shouting at them, telling them what to do.
Right.
because then they
It
can't
just
do it.
adds more.
There's too many dock skippers that are
The-
out there trying to tell somebody.
The biggest thing that I see for people docking, and I know this is not part of it, but the biggest thing I see, the mistake people do when they're docking is they don't stay on the boat. They jump off the boat. The helmsman runs forward to catch a line. The helmsperson, just like in the lock, maintains the boat. They should have a boat hook with them, so they can reach out and grab a stern line, or But the helmsperson needs to maintain control of the boat, and you don't. And then use boat hooks to pick up the lines. Don't jump off the boat. I mean, sometimes it's absolutely necessary. You're there. There's nobody to help you. The stern has a line on. You just quickly throw a bow line onto the dock and you run up there and tie it off. But
Helmsman's job is to give the other person every bit of opportunity to get their job done. So
Yeah.
if you're pulling up to a bollard in a lock, if you're really working the helm and that's where your focus is, you can plant them right beside that bollard so
Right.
gently, so easily that all they have to do is
Step over.
stay over there
And-
and then walk back and tie it.
and-
But you have to be at the helm instead of thinking, what can I do? I gotta get up there and help them do, because I've been there myself. You wanna go up there and fix it for them if they're not getting it, but
Right.
you have to be at the helm or you have to be the one.
it'll create greater problems if you're not. But you bring up a good point about locking, if we could go back to that for just a second. As you come into that lock wall, you see this fender right here. They make large, narrow ones that are also good. But the reality of it is that this will be generally below the sight of the helm, this fender. Okay, so as you're coming into the wall, don't put your railing up against the wall. All you're going to do is bump up the wall against the wall, and it'll push you away from the wall. So just give yourself plenty of room. If it's 6 inches or even if it's a foot, okay? Come in, kind of bring the bow in a little bit and hit that reverse on a right-handed prop, and it'll just pull you right up to where it needs to be. The helmsperson needs to put it in reverse and drop it right where these bollards, these fenders are on either side of that bollard. And the person that's standing on the side of the boat with this loop, all they have to do is go. Drop it like that. Now I will say, just as a reminder, if you are away from the wall, one thing I like about this system, if you are away from the wall, that doesn't make it easy for this person to do that. It's real quick for them to take their boat hook and reach a little bit further. It's also easy for them just to go take their boat hook and reach a really long distance. So you can be a long distance and drop this thing over the bollard. Now, are you secure? Not necessarily, but if the helmsperson brings in the winch a little bit, it'll pull the boat up to the wall. You can loosen it up, put another loop in, and you're good.
The loop's important too, because I like to stay off the wall. I'm not snug up against the wall. We stay a good 3 feet off the wall.
I like that hose
What's a loop
idea,
on?
I do too.
because when you do this, if it's the line,
Yeah,
it can just flop.
Yeah.
The
Makes the
back,
line more rigid, so you
yeah,
don't
it
have
actually holds an acre so that you can.
This is probably about 10 feet of old hose, 10 feet of old hose, a knot at each end, because you want it to be, you want it to be where the bollard is. So you'll measure that distance.
Need to double it up, though.
What's that?
Well, I've never seen it either, but I do tie at the end of each hose pipe, as you say.
Yeah.
I tie those together. So
Oh, you tie them together.
exactly.
Oh, yeah, I've seen people do that. Yeah, they'll have a smaller loop, but it'll be tied together right here, and then the lines go fore and aft, and you've got this one big loop, and that's fine, you know?
It's easier to release that way.
Huh? It's easy to release that way, yeah. Right.
Right, that's what you're saying, yeah, releasing is easier that way.
I mean, it's not that hard to do.
What's that?
You got the helmsman that puts you right there.
You gotta do this.
Everybody
She
needs
has a
to go
question.
down.
Yes. Ask your question.
I'll tell you the last. You said you put the fenders where the metal plate on either side of the bollard is.
Mm-hmm.
How do I know how far apart? When do I know? how
So,
far apart?
if you're looking down on, standing on top of the lock, and you're looking down the bollard hole that the bollard rides in, what you're going to see is the concrete wall, and then they'll have this curved metal piece that's built into the concrete wall, and then there'll be this pocket. Inside that pocket will be this bollard, and generally
So you're looking downwards?
looking downward. And you've got two rollers on either side, and that's what allows it to move up and down easily.
Yeah.
And that's the reason these things are generally reliable. I mean, it's a pretty simple thing.
And the bollard also has a lip on the top, so that.
It has a little,
On the back side.
right, so that when you put it over it, it doesn't slide off easily. Yeah, so they make it kind of easy. So as you're putting this line around, you drop it over it, then that line, if you do nothing more than just loop it over one time, is going to be rubbing up against this metal piece right here, because this is going to go to the bow and stern, and it'll get slimy. I mean, you're not going to lock through without getting your fenders or your boat or yourself was slimed. I mean, that's probably, I mean, you can be, sometimes with some of the locks, especially if you move forward, all the way forward, the locks are not watertight. And so, and there'll be this stream of water shooting out of the lock wall, huh?
Like Niagara Falls.
But little. Yeah, well, just understand that there may be, look for it. Look for it.
Make sure you
Did that answer your question? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, before and after the chain plates and.
Yeah, and like I said, if some people will bring it together here, some people will wrap it around, but the main thing is that you just get it secured, something over there,
You don't want your fender to get into that. You want your fender far enough front and after that.
Yeah, on either side.
Right, yeah, so yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, so then just under this line, then you'll have a fender here and a fender here, and this is probably 6 feet, 6 or 7 feet. So you have those fenders at the widest part of your boat, on either, about 7 feet split on either side, and then one forward in case the wind blows your bow into the wall, or in the stern as you're backing up. Maybe you're backing up too fast, and it'll pull the back of the boat into the.
So we are going to actually go and do this for everybody that wants to go lock through one day. That's the next step, right? Maybe what we ought to do is whatever boats are designated to go through, we did talk about this, I think, in our last meeting, about having people that want to go through for the first time, have some of us who have gone through before, go on their boat with them.
Yeah.
Maybe we make part of the first thing
Well-
we do before we leave here is setting that lineup on the boat, setting pictures.
That would be good. I would, as we talked at the last meeting, I would suggest that we go up the river and play and just get people away from the dock and anchoring and traveling. And like I said, in the past, the cruising fleet has floated up together. I've never thought that was a great idea, but let me just say this too. I'm not a buddy boater, okay? I mean, people that know. I did buddy boat with Howard, but I typically, I'm not a buddy boater. And you know what I'm talking about, buddy boater? Okay. So a group of people, yeah, well, a group of people go out and do something. We're going to go anchor up at this cove. Okay, we're going to go anchor out for tonight. It's typical that a big boat.
We like buddy boating.
Yeah. Well, that's right. A lot of people do like buddy boating, and there's nothing wrong with the socializing aspect of it. But
But a lot of times you don't have room to do stuff.
and the other thing too is that you become bound to sort of somebody else's schedule, and that can be frustrating sometimes too. You know, it's like, especially if you're traveling on the rivers and such, all the sailboats sort of travel at the same speed. You sort of get to know everybody at the marinas and anchorages and stuff. And so, you know, there's this tendency to you make good friends and you want to travel together, you know. But then it becomes problematic. Somebody breaks down and, you know, do you stay there with them, just holding their hand? Or, you know, or do you go on with your trip? They want to go into town.
A little bit different than everybody buddy boating together to an anchorage for the purpose of this short trip.
Right.
Hang out.
Yeah.
Have a drink, have a meal, and
But
then
also,
back.
there's a
Well, if-
safety aspect where if you have more than one boat, one can help the other out if need be.
Correct.
I know you don't like to do that, but that's okay.
No, I don't buddy boat, like I said. But
Anchorage drills right out here, we don't have to go there.
yeah.
That's fine.
But as far as
We used to do the raft ups out there, just
but I would,
right over there.
because
Or sometimes your buddy boat has to tell the police that this person actually is supposed to get climbing over the gate.
and then if you want to lock, so I would suggest that as a group, everybody go up and find a cove and anchor and spend the night. And you know, if people want to anchor up together, that's fine. If people want to break off and anchor separately, that should be fine also. But if you're going to lock through, you really need a destination. And locking through for the purpose of locking through is just, it's not kind of
We've
fun.
done that before though, it's like,
Yeah.
Steve had never locked through and I'd never locked through.
Right.
Bud Phillips from the other lake said, well, let's do this. We locked through Old Hickory, went downstream about a mile, turned around and came back.
Right.
And it's like my thought was, you know, what's the lockmaster gonna do for us? You know, so
They don't care.
apparently people do that a lot in fishing boats and
Yes.
and in bass boats. and
Yes,
stuff like that.
yes, yes.
And don't-
Nothing wrong with
They
doing
get
it.
paid the same either.
Right. But why not go on down to, for example, downtown Nashville? I mean, it's only, what? It's about, yeah. Hey, George has a question here.
Got a question about downtown Nashville. There's the dock there on,
Municipal dock.
is the dock public use?
Yes,
You have to
well,
You have to reserve it,
And you have to pay.
Yeah.
and it is paid.
Yeah.
It's a city park.
It has
yeah.
paid.
Yeah, I think it's 35 a night or 40 a night or something like that.
60,
Yeah.
Well,
Now,
this is why we might have to consolidate boats for a trip like that and not take 10 boats down there because we might not be able to dock.
As long as I get the main
correct. And so downtown Nashville's destination, but understand that it's about a 6-hour trip down. It's an all-day trip back. You leave early in the morning.
So it's a weekend thing. You gotta go down Saturday and come back.
There you go. But it's also just another day down to Cheatham Lock and Dam, where there are anchorages, you know. And then
Now you're talking about a 3 to 4 day.
But we can
no,
do both.
huh?
Now you're talking about a 3 to 4 day trip.
So you mentioned what's that island? Dover Island. Okay, that's one day.
I'm game.
You can be at Dover Island. You can lock through Cheatham and be pretty much down.
It's just past Clarksville.
Yeah, and then just past Clarksville, and then you're on. And Clarksville's a great place to stop. There's a nice marina there, and restaurant, and showers, and
I think
and then from Clarksville, you can hit Kentucky Lake in another day. Now, there's some great anchorages once you get to Barkley. So what's the rush? You know, pull over late in the day, one day, the third day, and then.
Not everybody's retired. Some people have like Saturday.
Well, to your no, it has. I promise you, for years, there's been a lot of people who have made that trip, and typically what you do is a weekend is you put together a weekend, you make that trip. You get to Kentucky Lake, you get a slip, you come back, work for a few days, you go back and you enjoy Kentucky Lake. And the best time to do that is in August and September when it's hot and miserable and no wind here. It's a lot nicer, cooler, great. I mean, the anchorages there are wonderful and the marinas are nice. So, you know, it'll cost you a few bucks to get a transient slip, but you'll be able to enjoy Kentucky Lake. And then another weekend, it is a 4-day trip on the way back, so you may have to take a day off and make that trip on the way back. And make that trip back in the fall. That's a beautiful trip to take back. That's a beautiful trip to take back in the fall. It is. Yeah.
I think they're all good ideas, but I have a question on the Bolliard.
Yeah. Bollard.
I've only seen one get stuck once on the.
I have nightmares about it.
Kind of the same.
Hey, Marley, just think of your worst experience on a
Yeah.
roller coaster and minus it to what you're gonna experience through
But
this.
that wasn't gonna be my question.
Right.
Did you say there was a reason why we shouldn't tie that to our center cleat?
No, there's no reason.
I think that
prefer it.
depends on
Yeah.
what you want.
Everybody's different.
But, I mean, what he's saying is that if you tie the center cleat, you have no spring.
But what do I
Yeah,
need
so
a
you
spring
need,
for?
you
Because
need.
it just feels more control back. But I will go.
Unless you, and yeah, if,
Does your pole take care of that?
People have different.
no,
Just make that job harder.
to his point, you're moving forward, not this way. You're moving forward, and so that loop is going to tighten up to the point that it yeah.
I figure out which one you like better.
I see what you're saying, so we won't
Yeah.
get that pivot, I got it.
So
Right.
Marley,
Yeah.
you need to go with somebody first.
But
Well, that's what I plan on doing.
And then they already have all the answers for you.
It'll always be a pivot.
I really like this now. What is that, about 30 foot?
No, it's my boat's 36, so it's probably 40.
Just the one,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
have center cleats.
And mine's
That's what I was gonna
27
ask
foot.
also, is how long is that, so, cause that is a great thing to make.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's
Yes.
my boat's 30.
The hose is 10 foot, but how long is your line?
Well, it depends on the boat, and so wherever the widest part of the boat is, you want this section,
Okay.
and then you want to take this line to the bow that you cleat off there, and then have the line at the stern. Some people just cleat it off. I like to put it on my winch. That way, I've got some control. So I use it like that. Yeah. So my boat's 36 feet. I'd say this thing is probably 36 or 40 feet, something like that. Yeah, you want to have plenty of line to be able to handle it and not have to reach out and grab the tail, tail end. Yeah. And this is just old sheet. Yeah. There-
I want my kick to pull me off the wall and shut the wall. He wants to pull into the wall. 'Cause
Yeah,
he's-
everybody's-
it's mindset.
whatever works for you.
That's how it works for him. But with me, I think about going to the opposite side because when
Yeah.
something, if the shit hits the fan and I gotta get out of there, I'm gonna use that prop walk to get off the wall, so I don't get pinned against it.
Oh, yeah.
Now let me just.
It's a lot of, you're gonna have to figure out how you like it when you do it. You're gonna have to do it at least once using some basic rules, which these are all good rules.
I've got full charts from here all the way down beyond the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, those chart kits they come in books. Now people have chart plotters now, so I mean there's but I like having a book. What's that?
You can't make notes on the chart plot.
Exactly, and that was going to be my point. Is that if anybody's interested in traveling the river, these chart books have been used by multiple people. Myself, Howard, Joe Hagan, Randall, Steve, have used them. And the only thing I ask is that if you find a nice anchorage, mark it. If it's and make comments in the pages, right on the books about what. And so over the years, these books have become wonderful resources for anchorages along river sections that really don't have. That you would think, oh, there's nothing here. But there is, And
My
so,
book is about 40 years old. Should I buy a new one?
no, mine's about 40 years old too, and it's still, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
eliminate it. No, you can't.
No, and it has such character. I mean, the books have such
Well, mine
character.
is-
You just brought up something that need charts. You need your chart plotter, and you also need your iPad or your cell phone, because I tell you what, when we were bringing
Sure be a help.
our chart plotter on our boat worked fine when we took it out to test it before we bought it. The day we were ready to go, when Steve and I were leaving Turner Marine to head north, the chart plotter was out and hadn't worked since. And if we had not had AIS on our cell phones, and we had not had the iPad, and we
Right.
had not had the charts, we would have been up the creek.
Google
I thought you were trying to go up the creek,
and
up the river.
and Google Maps.
We were staying in the river when we stayed out of the creek.
Google Maps can be a big help. You know, Susan and I many times have been looking for an anchorage, and you go, oh, look at that.
But how
You
many
know?
of you here know what AIS is, and the fact that you can get that on your cell phone for free? When Tom Hines and I were bringing our boat on the last leg from Clarksville to here, the biggest bend, just below the dam, we were coming around it, and we were watching it. And so I got on the radio, couldn't see the barge, he couldn't see us, because of how tight that bend is. And I got on the radio and I let him know where we were, and he immediately said, please, get over the inside of that curve, stop your boat and hug the corner, because he said, I don't have much room here at all. And by the time the bow of his toe passed us is about the time we finally saw him in the tower. And if we'd not been watching that, and I've been on the outside of that,
Right.
Yeah, some of those.
we'd have had nowhere to go
It-
when he came around that top bend.
If you'll listen, if you'll scan your radio for channel 13, which is what those guys use, or 14, but 13 is what they generally will talk to.
14, is that what?
I think it may be 14, but you can ask. It varies. Yeah, it could vary. But stay tuned. Be on that channel, because you'll hear them talking. And to your point, there's lots of places that they will just tell you, if they know you're there, they will just tell you, just put your boat or push your boat up against the shore. It's no problem. Just to go it slow, pull in, and stop your boat on the bank, because it's usually mud, and then they'll pass, and then you can take off from there. So
Also, sometimes it's a terminology they use, and I still don't get it right. But
One
it's
and two.
one horn or two horn.
right.
And so if you're not necessarily in a curve, but you're just passing them, and you're talking to the captain, you may say, Captain, you know, where would you like me to pass? And they'll say just one horn or two horns.
Well, it depends on if you're meeting
Just a whistle,
them.
that's it,
Yeah,
whistle.
it just, pass me on the one whistle. That means port to port.
Right.
If you're meeting. If you're passing them, or if they're passing you, which does happen, but if you're passing them, then you say, I'm going to pass you on your 1 for port, 2 for starboard. Okay, so you just, I'm passing you on your port side. You go, Roger, Captain. And they always talk like, they're just, I mean, and don't hesitate, because you will not understand them, and the worst thing you can do is not understand them. Listen to what they have to say. If you don't understand, just say, Captain, can you repeat that? All right. And
The easy way to remember that is port has one syllable, that's one whistle, starboard has two syllables.
But if they use the whistle, that's what they're meaning, to pass on either the port or the starboard side.
yeah.
I cannot stress enough, I mean, I think everybody here knows this, but, you know, they have right of way.
Very low.
What are you talking about, we're sailboats.
If you've never worked on a barge, I've been on a barge before, and I thought they were serious when they pulled a prank on me, and I started screaming over the radio. I was out in front of the telling, I was telling them, put it in full reverse, all of a sudden I just hear them key up the mic, and everybody in the boat's laughing, because I was a brand new greenhead. Yeah, son, we've been in full reverse for the last 3 miles.
But Tom, also,
That long to stop.
sailing, they used to say,
So you
you
think
see
you have right
a
away
tug,
because of the point of sail you're
they
on?
put them
They
all the way
have
in
right
reverse.
away.
It takes them a good 3 miles to come to a complete stop.
Oh, or maybe more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Depending
no.
on how much
It depends on
weight they're
current.
pushing.
Yeah.
We were up
So
around
just
Clarksville.
whatever they say do, just do it.
We were up around Clarksville at night, and that's scary.
Oh,
And
yeah.
here come the barges, and they swing from one side to the other and scares you to death.
Oh, yeah.
And even if you
What's
got
it?
enough anchor line, don't anchor each other.
Any more questions on locking or anchoring? Any more thoughts? Just get out there and do it. What?
I have one thing to say about the anchor part, and you've got an anchor light.
Yes.
At the top of your mast, these bass boats don't see it, they think that's a star. Put an anchor light
They do.
low.
Yes, do put an anchor light low. Good point. I use 2 anchor lights. I have one that hangs on the back stay that's probably about 8 feet off, 10 feet off the water, and another light that's on the masthead. And,
Focus forward or aft?
pardon?
Is the light on?
Aft.
Okay,
Aft.
so they can see.
But you need a light low enough, to Howard's point, that that people can see, because they're not looking for you. No,
Well,
they're,
one thing, years ago, when the Cumberland River Rampage,
Yeah.
that we took out here, about 14 boats we took off and we went up to Defeated Creek, and we stayed there a week. Well, David and I one day just wanted to branch off on our own, and so we just took off and just navigated the river on our own. Well, came back late at night, it was dark already, and we were coming into the cove where we knew these other 13 boats were anchored. Literally, it was so dark, we couldn't see them, and we knew they were there. We knew they were there, and we were on them, and we're like, where are they? Because we think Jim's there, and Donna's there, and, we're there. But we couldn't see them, and we knew them. So
They
that,
didn't have
at
the
that
lights
point in
on?
time was a reality
They
check.
had the anchor line on high, it's hard to tell.
Anchor line, but it looked like a star.
Okay, so they just had it masked
It
out.
was
Yeah.
so dark.
See it
That
lowered.
was reality check, that they cannot see you, especially when they don't know you're there.
right.
I like a light hanging from my boom, it lights my desk.
There you go.
It lights everything, all.
That lights everything.
Yeah.
And that's legal.
360 light.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
Well, get out there and do it.